Good evening to my friends. Tech Talk Tuesday, y'all. Time to come on in. I see a few of you lining up. Hey, Joshua. Good to see you. Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Charlie Edmondson. Man, you got in there early. Timothy. Thank y'all for watching. I say every week, we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today, and I'm excited to share with you. Somebody's like, George, how come you don't, hey Cash, how come you don't monetize this and turn it into a pay-per deal? But I'm going to tell you something, man. I am so thankful, Ron, hey, Bryce. So Cash and Bryce, both y'all, Cash and Bryce. That's good. Maybe one day in my next life, my name can be Cash Bryce. Hey, John. Hey, Doug. I love me some Cash, yeah. Tom. So why don't I monetize this? Well, let's see. We are week number 175. And I'm going to tell you something, y'all. I am rich because of this interaction that we do and the fact that I've been able to spend 40 plus years learning about these hot rod engines and being able to share it with you. My life would not be complete if I did not share this with you guys. And I'm going to tell you, my sales are good. My camshafts are selling good. Our valve springs are selling good. And the concept of what we've been trying to do all these years is selling good. So it's not about the money. It's not about how many people like on it. It's not about all that. I love getting feedback from you guys and seeing if I can help you save money, save time. Hey, Dan. Hey, Theodore. Hey, Charlie. You know, in the projects that you're working on, these are internal combustion engines. I'm not much on electric racing engines, and I love how fast they are and the acceleration of them, but I am all about burning gasoline, burning methanol, burning E85 and nitro, and I love that stuff, man. It's the internal combustion engine is just a passion of mine. I've had it since I was a teenager, and now the good Lord has given me a platform that I can share it with you guys on a weekly basis every Saturday. Oh, that was a Freudian slip. Everybody loves a Saturday. But I get to share it with you guys every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern. That's where we are right now. If you look at my clock, it says that it's only like a little after 5, but I'm in Central Time now. I am now in Tennessee, and I don't have a Bryce Customs anymore. This is a good story to tell you. One day when I had a partner that owned S&S Cycle, came in one day and got half of our race team, and so it was called G Squared Motorsports or G2 Motorsports. And they were disappointed that when I'd go on TV with the pro stock motorcycles and I'd get interviewed, I have a Star Racing hat, I have Star Racing on my shirt, and they said that it needed to be about G2 and G Squared, but my 30, 40 years of heritage was from Star Racing, starting back in the 70s. And it hurt my heart so bad that one of the reasons there were several reasons I had a heart attack in 2006, but that was one of them because they were trying to shove this new identity down on me when I was George Bryce / Star Racing, Star Cycle, Star Performance, we were Star. So I kind of behind the scenes, Jackie and I came up with another company called Bryce Customs. That was in case the G Squared thing grew big enough to extinguish Star Racing. I wanted to keep the name. I wanted to keep the star. So we turned the logo into that. In 2008, that company that owned half of Star Racing, which called it G Squared Motorsports, they had a really big hit in business because of the 2008 recession or whatever happened. But a lot of people, I think it was because the chopper industry kind of tanked and they were putting all their eggs in the chopper engine business instead of high performance engines like we do now. And boy, if S&S had been on the same gas pedal as then, like they were then, now with the Milwaukee 8 and the twin cams, man, it would be the greatest business. Hey, Rick. And I made a lot of mistakes in my career too. But anyway, it hurt mine and Jackie's heart, and so we invented this to kind of fill in the gap in case something went wrong. I even bought a big shop at home. I was going to put a dyno in, and I was going to work on my stuff when we got when the merger came in and overpowered us and ran us out. But that didn't happen. They ended up going down enough that we had to go to the bank and borrow money, and we had to buy their half of Star Racing back, and it took us 12 years to pay it off, but we finally paid it off, and now we own Star Racing again 100%. So that's really good. That's a story you didn't know anything about. Also, I see some stuff on the internet where people talk about the upbringing, and I did a really cool thing about the camshafts and how we started back then, and how hard it was to go to the races. And people, we help people go to the races now. Somebody needs a ride, somebody needs some parts, somebody needs some stuff. We try to help them. So yeah, Bryce Customs. Yeah, that's something that's not there anymore. That's another day. But I had the hat, and it's cool. And I also got, in honor of those guys, which helped us grow our business, I have my S&S shirt on. So there's no hard feelings. I'm just saying that's what happened. And the roller coaster ride. But let me tell you, man, Jackie and I were running IDBA, International Drag Bike Association, back in the 70s. And we had some fast motorcycles, and I was doing well racing. I just started. I was a rookie. And we decided in 1996, 1997, that we would chase the circuit for a year and see how we fared in the national point standings, because that was NHRA pro stock in our mind back then. IDBA was big. You know, NHRA didn't really have a bike program back in the 70s. So we chased IDBA, and we ended up winning championships, and we won sportsman championships. We won funny bike championships. And then we started doing well in pro stock motorcycles right when IDBA sort of the dyno sheet got to the end and just sort of nosed over, and they went down the hill. But man, what a great place they started our industry from. But let me tell you, so 1977, Jackie and I got in a car with an open trailer, like a dirt bike trailer, put 2 bikes on it, and we drove all day and all night to Minnesota to the North Star Nationals where IDBA ran. And we didn't have but enough money to get there, and I had been finishing in the money at every race. We went to all the races that series. I think it was 10 events, and I finished semis or worse, runner-up or win, and we would get a little money to come home. But we didn't think about what would happen if we didn't win any money. How would we come home? So in 1977, we drove all the way to Minnesota, got the bikes unloaded, and I made some practice runs, and I went up first round Sunday. I red-lighted first round, and I'm telling you, wing and a prayer. We didn't have $50. We didn't have $20. We didn't have $10. We were sleeping in the rest areas. We showered at a camping ground. One of those KOA deals, you just pull over the side of the interstate and shower. And I went up in the tower, and I asked Tony Lee, I said, Tony, hey, can Jackie and I borrow $50 to come home? I'll give you the money back at the next race. And he said, nope, can't do it. I said, why? And he said, just the wrong, it's not good business. I said, what do you mean? He said, I made a promise when I started this organization back in 75 that I would never loan money to a racer. It's bad. It's a mistake. You don't do that. You don't loan money to a racer. So Jackie and I begged. I let her have a shot at it in the tower. She said, Tony, please, 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 loan us $50. We'll give it back. We'll give you $60 back in 4 weeks. So he gave me, after the race was over, we had to wait and wait and wait. He gave me $50, and Jackie and I had to drive all the way home day and night. We would share a hamburger. We'd share a Coke. We had just enough gas to get back home. We lived in South Carolina. She had to go to work in school on Monday, and I had to go back to my plumbing job on Monday. And we won the championship that year. And when we got our big check for winning the championship, our $5,000, Tony Lee was he gave the bio before he called me up to give my speech, and he told that story. And it stuck in my head, man. It stuck in my head. But I remember, man, that's when we really had started racing, was when we had to borrow money to come home. Now, I'm not telling you that's the worst story that ever happened in drag racing. I'm just saying that is a story that happened. But that's not why I have gathered you guys here today. I gathered you here today to talk about ring seal and vacuum pumps and what we've learned about vacuum pumps. And I get a lot of questions from folks every day. You message me, you email me, And you also, when I post stuff about ring seal and crankcase pressure and stuff like that, people call me out on it all the time because it's my opinion, and what I think I have learned is not popular with the old guard. It is not popular with the old guys. And I am an old guy. I mean, I'm 68 years old, but I have burned up so many engines and rings and pistons and cylinders, and I learned all this stuff. And I want to share with you what I think I learned and how it works, instead of what people think. People think that the pistons create pressure under the pistons and they go up and down, and they think this pressure is building. And when you put bigger pistons in, they think it's more pressure building. But listen, there is a certain amount of cubic inches, and I'm going to switch this camera over to Blue 50 right now, and I want to show you something. Let's move over to Blue 50, and I want to show you these big bores. These are really big bores right here. They're 4/600 bore. These pistons are huge. The bottom end of this engine is the same as a 107. This is a 107, 114, 117 set of cases for a Milwaukee 8. It's got a 4.375 stroke crank in it, and it's got the same lifters that we run in LS engines. I mean, these are virtually the same lifters. The rings are the same, and the valves and all that stuff is pretty. Oops, that's drop forged. Pay no attention to the man behind the green curtain. This is lifter cuffs. These keep the lifter straight, so they'll roll on, the wheel will roll straight on the lobes. But let me share with you this bottom end right here. This bottom end has this many cubic inches, whatever it is. It's stock, 107, 114, 117, has this many cubic inches. When it had stock pistons on it, they would go up and down like this. And when it had 114s, it would go up and down. 117s, the pistons would go up and down. And this cubic inches of crankcase would compress when the pistons would go down, and when the pistons would go back up, the pressure would go down. So this pressure in here gets bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller. There is nothing adding to this pressure. There's nothing adding unless the ring seal is so bad that the combustion pressure in here under the cylinder head gets blown in here, and it blows around the ring. How many of you guys know how an air compressor works? You got a V-twin air compressor at your shop. It has 2 cylinders. Pistons go like this. Some of them goes up and down, up and down, up and down, and it's a pump. And they say all engines are air pumps. Yes, but what you forgot to consider is the air pump, the air compressor, has intake valves and exhaust valves. All air compressors have a way to add air. They have reed valves, or they have real valves with real lifters, and the air goes in through the intake valve, and then the valve closes, then it compresses it, and then after that, it goes back down on compression, and then it blows the compression out of the exhaust into your system that you have at your shop to make your power tools go new, or your porting tools or whatever air tools you have. The air compressor compresses intake air and then exhausts it into your tools. This is not an air compressor. It works like one in a way because it has an intake system. It has intake valves. It has exhaust valves, and it has a compression release, and we have 2 spark plugs. But an air compressor does not have spark plugs, and it does not have gasoline. An air compressor pulls in dry air, squeezes it, and exhausts it out into your tools. So I took these little baby 3.9 pistons out, put these giant 4.6 bores in, and now the pistons are bigger, so we pack a little more air into this bottom end when these pistons go up and down, and then when they turn around and come back up, we release that air. But in my engines, the engines I build and design, I keep the pressure the same down here, and I keep the pressure the same when I compress it and when I release it. When I compress it and release it. My intake valves let more air in to compress above the rings. Then my pressure comes back up. I light it, the spark plugs, and it goes bang. It makes the crankshaft turn with the combustion pressure. And then my exhaust valves open and the pistons come back and push it out the exhaust pipe. That's how it's not an air compressor. So the folks that tell us every day that we've got pressure building in the bottom end because we have big pistons, I'm sorry, that's not true in my world. Okay, why do we believe it's true? Why do we think it's true? because when you put big pistons in, you put worse pistons. Nope, it's a better brand, right? It's a Venolia, it's a Arius, it's a Wiseco, it's CP, it's JE, all those great pistons. And then you get these rings from Perfect Circle, Hastings, Total Seal, all that stuff. And then you get some guy to bore it and hone it, and then they put it together, or you buy a Screaming Eagle Stage 3, Stage 4 kit or whatever. And the bore and hone is okay, it's okay. And then the rings are okay and the pistons are okay, and you put it together, and now you rev it up. Rev limiter was at 5,300. Now you're going 6,500, and your blow by, the crankcase builds up this big old pressure. And when it does, it pukes oil out of the breathers, it pukes oil out of the head gasket, the base gasket, pukes oil out of all the gaskets. And we buy ventilators. I see some companies sell a ventilator to go here. I see my friend Michael Beelan sells a really nice ventilator to go here to let the pressure out of the crankcase. This is not a transmission oil. This is crankcase. This is the same. This is added to the cubic inches here. This is connected through these channels, and this is part of the crankcase. I know it doesn't seem like it is, but it is part of it because the oil pump is in here, and the oil pump pulls the oil out of the tank under the transmission, pumps it through the engine, and then pumps it back to the tank under the transmission, and this is where you add engine oil. And if you know what a dry sump system is, here is one. This has a dry sump. It has a tank and a pump. And when you get so much blow by here and your return out of your oil pump is not good enough to put enough oil out, pull the oil out of the sump and put it back in the tank, the pressure builds up in here and you end up with more oil in here than the pump can handle. Therefore, it starts churning a big quarts of oil in here. It starts running hot and the oil blows by the rings blow by combustion, and this turns into a hot mess, and it literally burns the engine up. And yeah, it's a big question whether I know what I'm talking about or not, but I'm going to give you some more proof to that. People all the time tell me, say, no, George, you're wrong. Bigger pistons make more. No, what happens is when you put bigger pistons in, you make the ring seal worse. You make the combustion pressure more, and your questionable ring seal has now gone down the tank. So as you go from 100 horsepower to 200 horsepower, you have just increased the amount of pressure that goes by the normal amount of ring leak, and it blows this pressure up and it starts puking out. So 99% of the people, and this is my data, have bad ring seal. The pistons are okay, the rings are okay, the cylinder's okay, the combination's wrong, my opinion, and then you over rev it. Stock engines have a rev limiter on them that's set 5,300. You got an LS engine that's got 5,500. You got a pickup truck with a 4,700 RPM rev limiter. All those are good. There's no oil puking out. You don't have breathers leaking out of the valve covers. It's all under control. The rings and pistons you use are within control, and the combustion pressure doesn't blow by the rings and increase the bottom end pressure that pukes all over the place. Back when I was a kid, back when I was going to school, we had 327s, we had LT1 350s, we had 454s, 427, L88s. And when we would rev them up, because guess what? When you bought a brand new 69 Chevelle, it had no rev limiters on it, man. That thing would throw parts all over the ground. And we had valve covers that puked so much oil out of the breathers that we would take these shop rags and we would tie them around the breathers like this to keep the oil from puking on the headers and making smoke come out. You go pick up your girlfriend, pull up the traffic light, and there's smoke coming out of the headlights are smoking, and the sides of the hood are smoking, and you go, what's wrong with your engine? Nothing. I just got through revving it up good and running it through the gears, did a Italian tune-up and blew the carbon out of the exhaust system there in third gear, wide open down that side street over there, and now my valve covers are freaking blowing oil all over my headers, and it's made a smoky mess. Well, nowadays we can buy good rings, we can buy nice pistons, we can control the ring speed here and the piston speed here, and we can use nice cylinders. These are some really nice liners that we got that have a giant strength to them, and also these were bored in home with torque plates. They were also honed on a real high quality hone that has the right amount of RPK, RVK, and RK, and that's another day, another story. But these cylinders hold oil in them, and they lubricate the rings, and the oil on the rings is the seal. And I'm going to go to the vacuum pump story right now, but I want to tell you why vacuum pumps work. Also, I wanted to tell you that it is Tech Talk Tuesday, number one. I hope I'm still on live. Yes, I am. Somehow or another, I cut my screen off. I wrote down vacuum pumps just so I'll have a little target here because I ramble really well. And this is 175 weeks in a row. And I'm going to see a lot of comments that you guys write, and I'm going to answer some questions for you guys. But I want to tell you that when I need, I put a note that 99% of the folks have poor ring seal, and they over rev it where the rings can't stay connected to the piston. And when that happens, the combustion pressure, which is a lot, 800,000 PSI, blows by the rings, goes in the bottom end, and then it starts puking out of the breather. So why do we have that issue? Well, we over rev it, we got poor parts, and we got poor workmanship, and we exceed the capability of the parts, whereas the stock OE guys, if you bought a CTSV Cadillac or the new supercharged Camaro or Mustang or the Roush cars or the Shelbys, there's so many. If you go on Google right now and you Google crankcase tank, crankcase pressure tank, or blow-by tank, overflow tank, go look at a top fuel car, man. They got these giant hoses about this, but they're about as big around as this piston, and they go back into a tank behind the engine, and the tank behind the engine is bigger than the cubic inches of the engine. So when the pistons go out, all the pressure going through combustion pressure going back past the rings, through the bores, into the bottom end, pukes all the oil out all over the racetrack. My friend, when I was racing the Winston days, we had Jim Head had a top fuel car, and he put a red light on his dashboard that was when the oil pan pressure got to like 10 PSI. Going down the track on a 4-second top fuel run, his light would come on. He would back off the throttle immediately and pull over the side of the track because he was trying to help save drag racing, where we don't spend 2 hours cleaning the track. We wouldn't spend 2 hours with oil dry and safety safari working out there like dogs trying to clean up the mess because we couldn't control our combustion. Nowadays, if you have a Milwaukee 8 or a twin cam like Blue 5.0 and you don't have the best ring seal in the world, you don't have top gas ports in your pistons, and you didn't get some really nice ductile iron liners, and get someone that has the $100,000 worth of equipment to bore and hone your cylinders, get in touch with Mike Beelan, a1cycles.net. He has a crankcase breather that will help you evacuate some of that pressure before it blows all over your air cleaner and all out your head breathers. And I told him, I give him a little shout out because he has been very patient with me telling these stories, and all I talk about is what the best it can be. But I'm going to tell you something, man. Most of us that are watching this and will watch this in the next 10 years, we don't live the best we can. We could do better than we do. And if you buy the cheapest piston on the market, or you buy the cheapest rings on the market, and you buy the cheapest aluminum liners that are nickel sealed or whatever you're buying that doesn't seal up good, you're going to have blow-by. And this is not a dig on any company. I'm just telling you the things I think I know over my time. Another thing that we don't realize is if you took a top ring and you expanded it, this is like an 043 top ring. We've all heard of that. This ring is barrel faced. This is the only part that touches the cylinder right here. Why is that? Because this piston is going to go up and down the bore. It's going to go cocked over here going down. It's going to cock over here going up. It's going to cock over here going down. It might even cock over here going down. It might even cock over here going up. And this is not going to be a square surface here. So if the ring was square, like we think it is, this would create so much friction and it would run so hot. And what our goal for this ring is to seal it. This is our O-ring to seal the combustion pressure from blowing by in the bottom end. But the oil that's in these jagged edges on the cylinder wall is what really seals this. And our ring is shaped with a barrel face like this. And it only touches in the center. If you had a ball bearing and you set it on the table and the ball bearing is 1 inch in diameter, how much of that ball is touching that table? Only about 10 thou. Same thing with the ring. When it wears out to where this part, the contact part, gets too big, you need new rings, my opinion. The second ring, this is the top ring only, and I know I've told you this before, but the second ring is a tapered ring. It is like a windshield wiper. It's just to scrape oil off. It is not a compression ring, and it is very necessary. I am not a fan of 2-ring pistons where it has one top ring and an oil ring because it has really poor oil control. Now, let me tell you about the vacuum pump. People believe that a vacuum pump is to control the windage and the pressure in the bottom end. They say if you put a vacuum pump in here and pull the engine down to, say, 10, 15, 20 inches of vacuum, it controls that pressure that's under those pistons. It does not. All it does is give you a way to seal this top ring longer, because think about this for a minute, y'all. This top ring weighs how many ever grams it weighs, and this piston goes down on the intake stroke. Then the intake valves open and it fills it up with air and fuel, and then the piston valves close and the piston goes back and squeezes it, and then the spark plugs light and it goes bang. Okay, all that's good. That's one time. This piston's doing it 100 times a second. It's going up and down 100 times a second. So this ring is really fighting for its life to hang on. I only got 1 thou clearance, side clearance here, but this ring is going up and down. This piston goes up, and here's the part that's hard to imagine. At 6,500 RPM, this piston stops. At 6,500, it stops dead. It doesn't move, it stops. It goes to the top and stops. It goes to the bottom and stops. It goes to the top and stops. That's called dwell time. Piston goes up, stops, goes back down. Goes up, stops, goes back down. When this piston goes up and stops, this ring at 6,000, 7,000, 13,000 RPM, this ring is so heavy that it keeps going. And when this ring keeps going, it loses ring seal, and the combustion pressure blows right by into the bottom end and starts puking oil out, and your horsepower goes straight down. On a dyno sheet, when you see the power roll over at the top, people say, oh, I floated my valves. Oh, I ran out of power. I ran out of air. Cylinder heads need port, cam needs a closed valve later. We ran out of power band. Well, guess what? You might have outrun the rings, because if it's puking oil out of the breathers, you also had power fall off when it started puking oil out of the breathers because you outran your rings. So when I put a vacuum pump in here and I pull 20 inches on my race engine, I suck vacuum on these oil holes right here. Can you see these oil holes? These are drain back holes right here. These are drain back holes. That's made so that the oil will come out of the oil rings and run back in there. But if we got a negative pressure in the crankcase, we're pulling vacuum there, and then we allow the oil to come by, the vacuum to come by this oil ring, get up here, pull the second ring down tight, and we leave a big gap on the second ring so the vacuum can get to the top ring and hold the top ring down so that it stays sealed. And it might be good if you got an engine that's dynoed like this right here. Your dyno sheet looks like this, and it falls over at this RPM. If you put 20 inches of vacuum under this ring, there's a chance that this could look like this, because the ring stays sealed longer when you're going RPM this way. So when you can rev it up higher and higher and higher on the tachometer, before the rings lose seal with the piston, the vacuum pump can keep it sealed for a little longer. So if you can only turn it 6,500 without puking oil out of the breathers, crankcase ventilation, or when your dyno sheet falls over or you quit pulling in the RPM, it's because you lost ring seal. That's one reason. There's several reasons, but that's one that doesn't get considered. We lost ring seal. So if you put vacuum under it, you can maybe extend this power range to 7,000 RPM. And instead of it falling over here, we can continue to rev it here. Now, let me tell you this. When you see an engine that has poor rings, poor pistons, poor bore and hone, and you put a vacuum pump on it and you pick up 10 horsepower, I've seen lots of car guys say, hey, I picked up 20 horse with a vacuum pump. Well, that was probably where they dyno it, because this is what most people's dyno sheets look like. This is what the dyno sheet looks like. Most guys build engines in dyno. They say, at this RPM, it made this much power. On my dyno sheets, I go over here and find this. Yeah, that's probably peak. Peak might be right here. But what does it make 1,000 past peak? What does it make over here? If it's got ring seal problems, it falls over quick. If it has good ring seal, it won't fall over as quick. And if you'll go back and look at some of my posts, I've got a picture of the blow-by meter on an engine running on the dyno to 13,000 RPM, and you can see the blow-by, the ball on the blow-by it gets to about 2.4 CFM and stays there. And that's only because it has gas ports on top. We put a piston just like in it with no top gas ports, and it went to 6.5 CFM of blow-by. Same cubic inches, same bottom end, just no good ring seal. And it went from 2.4 CFM of blow-by to 6.5 CFM, 6.5 CFM of blow-by versus 2.4 CFM of blow-by. And that turned into huge cubic inches over here. I mean, huge horsepower over here. I'm sorry I'm getting tongue-tied because I'm talking too fast because I can see the clock is mowing through here like Grant took Richmond. But if we can get that sealed up longer and put some vacuum under it, we can extend our rev range. Now, that's vacuum pump 101 first try. And let me tell you, there's a lot more to it. I ran out of time today. Man, you guys stayed consistent watching me. Thank you so much. I would love to carry on a little further with this. And please, if you want to know more about how this works and more about the vacuum pump, please send me the note. Please message me right here on my Facebook page, or I'm going to put this on YouTube tonight or tomorrow. It will be at George Bryce Star, at George Bryce Star on my YouTube channel. All 100 and something weeks of Tech Talk Tuesday are on there. And I am so thankful that you guys spend this time with me. And I wanted to tell you, may God bless y'all. And check out Blue 50 got his drag bars. Look at these stock bars. The motorcycle looked like it was so big. Look at the drag bars now. I'm going to be able to tuck in out of the wind and maybe go 140 miles an hour in a quarter. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Have a great night. I enjoyed it a bunch. And remember, y'all, this is my opinion. It's not popular because it goes against what many folks think. But I have some reasons why I think I believe it. But I am interested in your opinion, and let's go there and see. Jackie says I love to argue. I don't. I love to discuss the things I am passionate about. And I'm not going to argue with you because there's people that know more than me. I just love to share what I think I know. May God bless y'all. I love y'all.